Last time we visited this project, I just finished building and installing the vanity carcass. Now, it's time to finish the custom vanity for my bathroom, but I have to do half the project surrounded by the beautiful tile layout my wife designed, terrified that my work has to live up to that. Let's find out if I'm up to the challenge. My wife chose rustic brown. Plywood and hardwood stain differently, so I tested dilutions on scraps to find a match. A 1-to-1 water/stain mix on the plywood, and then full-strength stain on the maple hardwood face frames and doors, which we'll apply in a few minutes, matched very nicely. 3 coats of polyurethane followed that for moisture protection.
Don't forget to put your shelf pin holes in before you assemble your cabinet, because let me tell you, this sucks.
I installed blocking behind this cabinet for secure mounting because we added a false wall for inset medicine cabinets. A scribed filler strip covered the rear gap nicely. We'll cover scribing later.
So what we're doing is measuring for the face frame, except we want to make sure that the doors and the sink line up centered under the mirrors. So what I did first was I put a mark at the center line of the mirror. Then I transferred that mark down to the back. Then I transferred that mark down to the front, right here as the seam between the 2 doors. So what I did then was this face frame needs to be a fixed size. So I measured out the width of the 1.5-inch face frame that I'm going to make here. Then I measured from here to the center line to find the width of this door, and then I simply matched that measurement to find the edge of the door over here. So now I know that this edge of the face frame needs to be 3 1/2 plus whatever I need to scribe it to this. So I'm actually going to cut it to 4, scribe it, and then cut it down to the 3.5 dimensions so that it sits right on that line. So, and then I did the same thing. I just measured all my dimensions for the face frame here, made myself a little diagram.
Now, cutting. First, I trimmed the face frame boards to width on the table saw. Then I trimmed them to rough length on the miter saw. Before assembling the face frame, I scribed the 2 side pieces to the wall. Scribing is a multi-step process. I cut the boards about 1/2 inch too wide, marked the desired top and bottom edges on the carcass, and then made another mark 1/2 inch further in from that. Aligning the board edge to those second marks, my wife helped me scribe a line with my high-tech jig, a scrap of wood with a small hole drilled in it. I started cutting with a big bevel in the back, minimizing wall touch points and material removal. A jigsaw, hand plane, and orbital sander trimmed the boards to this line. Test fitting is critical. Sore thighs from a few trips up and down the stairs beats starting over. When these pieces finally fit, I used the table saw to trim them to width, using the still flat side as a reference. Not an ideal cut with the small offcut pinched, but I stood clear and used my gripper, again linked in the description. With the end pieces finished, I measured the final distance and cut the top and bottom rails to length. Does anyone else always have to look up which are the rails and which are the stiles? Comment your favorite way to remember down below. For face frame assembly, pocket holes are perfect. That is what they were designed for, after all. If you don't have a pocket hole clamp, just clamp the face frame to your work surface. I also raised the face frame onto plywood scraps so the corner clamps had some clearance. Then sanding and finishing. Nothing special here. Sanding these edges before assembly would have been a lot easier, but I didn't want to throw anything out of square. Since it's stained, not painted, pre-stain conditioner helps to even out maple's blotchiness. Then, 2 coats of full-strength stain to match the plywood, followed by 3 coats of polyurethane. Sanding between coats is probably the single most important step for a smooth finish, and the one we're all most likely to skimp or skip. Don't. A good finish is hard to get, but my wife is super happy. And why else do we drop hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars into DIY furniture if not to make our spouses happy? To install the face frames, I used pocket holes again. I picked up a micro pocket hole jig for hard to reach spots. I didn't want pocket holes in the visible middle of the undersink cabinets, so I stretched tape over it to set the glue. Next, drawer slides. I wanted these in place before the countertop for easy access. This was my first time with undermount slides, and I'm not going back. They're so easy to install, instructions are clear, and the drawers are a breeze, provided everything's square. Mine weren't at first, as the cabinet walls that I'd screwed them to weren't quite square. Oops. To fix this, I reinstalled them using a square against the face frame and a Craig drawer slide jig, which worked much better. Being a great woodworker isn't about not making mistakes, it's about knowing how to fix them. Or so I tell myself when I wake up in cold sweats from nightmares about all the mistakes I make. If fixing an oops is something you like to see in woodworking videos, then maybe hit that subscribe button, because I can pretty confidently promise more mistakes on future projects. While I waited for the countertop to be fabricated, I built the drawers. Nothing fancy. Best tips: find a good instructional video, Bourbon Moths is great, and edge band the tops before cutting pieces to length. Also, finish all the parts before assembly. Finishing assembled drawers with all those nooks and crannies is a tedious nightmare. I bought a jig to help install the undermount drawer clips, but I didn't like it, so no link. I just used the hardware pieces as the jig, which worked fine. Closing soft close drawers for the first time has got to be a top 10 woodworking experience. Then I started on the doors and drawer faces, after a quick 2-month break. Again, I used a Bourbon Moth video for these basic shaker-style doors. The math took some doing, but I got there. I won't go into detail, because Jason does it better, but keys for me were aligning the drawers at the exact height of the accompanying doors, everything having a 1/2-inch overhang, and 1/8 gaps all around. After triple checking the math, I cut pieces to the final size, leaving extra length for the tenons. Then I cut grooves for the center panel and tenons into the rails to fit those grooves. They should fit snug. I had to try several times and ruin quite a pile before I found a consistent fit. Assembly's easy at this point. Snap the pieces together with a little glue, then clamp overnight. Use minimal glue. Cleaning squeeze out is a major pain, and even invisible glue stains can ruin the finish. After assembly, I cut plywood backers for the drawer faces. This makes installation much easier. Craig jigs to the rescue again. I used the hinge jig for door hinges and the cabinet hardware jig to drill holes for the handles for all the drawers. My wife and I opted against handles on the doors below the sink to prevent our clothes from snagging. Instead, I put a small chamfer on the top of each door with the router table. I installed the doors first since the drawers reference those. One piece of advice: spend extra money for real cabinet hinge screws, not regular wood screws. My regular wood screws kept snapping when I tightened them. Yes, even without a drill. Then I removed all the hardware, sanded everything, broke all the corners, and finished it all. Again, full strength stain on the hardwood, 1-to-1 mix on the plywood center panels. Wiping excess stain regularly makes a world of difference in removing brush marks and evening out the color. 3 coats of polyurethane protect everything from bathroom moisture. Hanging it all back up after finishing is easy because the holes are already there. Take the time now to adjust the gaps, reveals, and levelness of the doors, otherwise the drawer face alignment may be off. There are lots of ways to install drawer faces, but my favorite is using some kind of spacer and then screwing them into place through the hardware holes. Take your time with the alignment because you don't want to have to redo this. A second pair of hands to hold everything steady really helps. Thanks, Papa. Then just screw them into place from the inside and remove those front screws. Now all that's left is installing the drawer pulls. And of course, redoing the obligatory close all the soft closed drawers shot. This is one of my all-time favorite projects, even if there's a few things I would do different next time. I'm not a fan of the stain. It's still blotchier than I'd like, and I can see everywhere I wiped too soon or too late. I'm much better at applying hard wax oils like Osmo, which are more forgiving and easier to fix, so I might stick with that next time. I'd also build the base as 3 cabinets instead of one big one. Installing drawer slides showed me it's not as square as I would have liked over such a wide span, and I think separate pieces would be better. Plus, assembly would have been a lot easier. Finally, I'd find a different method for face frame installation. I didn't want to nail it because it's stained, but I don't like seeing the pocket holes when the doors are open. Fortunately, no one else notices any of this when we force them into our bathroom to show off our handiwork. Because flaws and all, this is a beautiful piece, and I'm proud I built it for my home. And lucky for me, my wife loves it and swears it has nothing to do with how sick she was at brushing her teeth while staring at plywood drawers and open cabinets for months. Tune in next time to find out what project I'm in over my head with next.